just another Manic Monday.
What it is, YouTube. You know who it is. It's your boy, the Moose. Let's kick it.
Song, ready? The stars are light, are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. Okay, that worked.
Okay, let's see it.
It likes to run, it loves to jump, no one could ever stop. A big or small party, it will be there, no matter where or when. It moves on and loose, it moves on and loose, it'll be party all day long. It moves on and loose, it moves on and loose, what are you waiting for?
4 more subscribers and we will hit the big 50. Go ahead and share me some love by going ahead and subscribe to my channel. Ring that bell for more notifications for videos like this and countless others. Manic Music Monday. As you can see in the intro, that's what this is all about. Okay, so let's get into this now. And the thumbnail shows it all. But we're going to get into it and we're going to discuss the group, how it formed, what's going on with it, and why is it so controversial. So let's get into this. So first, let me move me up here, and we're Brother Marquise and the group. Come on in. This is the group. They have lots of controversial albums out, and we're going to get into it. Let's see if I can get this straight so you can read it a little bit. Right along with me. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to share a couple clips, and we're going to go from there. So the Two Live Crew was an American hip-hop group from Miami, Florida, United States, which is the greatest commercial success in the late 1980s and early 90s. Founded by Luke Campbell, they were considerably controversial in the U.S. due to the sexuality, implicit, and mystic content of their songs, particularly on their 1989 album, Nasty as They Wanna Be. They were frequently challenged for their sexual explicit lyrics. Origins, Riverside, California. Genre, hip-hop, Miami bass, dirty rap. From 1984 to 1998, and then come back for the triumph of 2009 to 2016. Labels, Fresh Beat, Monocola Records, Luke Records, Lil Joe Records. Associated acts, Ice-T's up on top. Lunas, Numbskull, Yuckmouth, Flavor Flav, he had to be put in the picture. Chili Chill, pretty good. Manny Fresh, Professor Griff, Trina, DJ Slice, DJ Laz, and Creed Moore. Cedric Moore. Past members, Fresh Kid Ice, Brother Marquise, Mr. Mix, Lewis Campbell, and then Verb. Alright, let's get into the history. So, 1984 to 1986, the group formation and breakthrough. The Two Live Crew, although seen as a main fixture in the Miami hip-hop scene, actually got their start in California. Was created by DJ Mr. Mix, David Hobbs, and fellow rappers Fresh Kid Ice or Chris Wong Wan, and Amazing V, Verde Verlat. The group released its first single, Revolution, on its label Fresh Beat Records in 1984. The A-side of the Revolution contained the song by the same, where the only rappers featured was Amazing V, and on B-side was contained a song named 2 Live with Fresh Kid Ice. Was the only rapper featured. Revolution was popular in Florida. Luke Skywalker, aka Luke Campbell, who at the time was a local DJ and promoter, invited 2 Live Crew to relocate to Miami. Also due to the subsequent success of 2 Live Crew, this made Fresh Kid Ice the first rapper to be noted in Asian American in hip hop, and in the first Asian rapper to gain notoriety. The first single, What I Like, is in 1985. Fresh Kid Ice was the only rapper featured. Amazing V was credited as writer and left the group shortly after. The single, Throw the D, not throw some D's on it, don't get it mixed up. Throw the D, released in January 1986, gave a permanent blueprint on how future Miami-based songs were written and produced. I will play a clip from that.
Better freak your body and turn it loose, cause when you're on the floor you don't give a shit. All you wanna do is throw that D.
The song was produced by Mr. Mix, as he is credited to be the architect of the genre. Brother Marquise, Mark Ross, joined 2 Live Crew. Luke Skywalker, Luke Campbell, gave the 2 Live Crew a record deal and worked as the group's manager. He also joined the group as the hype man and the spokesperson of the subsequent controversies. So he was very much influenced, and you'll get why. Okay, and you'll hear some things about him that piss you off. 2 Live Crew, debut album, The 2 Live Crew Is What We Are, was released in 1986 by Alex Henderson of AllMusic. Commented that the album did take sexually explicit rap lyrics to a new level of nastiness. Nasty. As Charlie Murphy would say, buck nasty. With tracks such as We Want Some Pussy, Throw the Dick, that's what the D word, with the word, mouth, intention. The album was certified gold by the Recording Industry Association of America. Rob Rosenberg of Willpower remixed Beatbox, originally released as 2 Live, and was billed King of Edits by Luke Skywalker in 1987. A Florida store clerk was acquitted of felony charges for selling the album to a 14-year-old girl. In a minute. In 1988, my first intakes of this. In 1988, the group released their second album, Move Something. It was certified gold and featured the singles Move Something and Do Wah Diddy Diddy. The album improved on the charts from a previous album, making it to 68 on the Billboard's 200 and 20 on the top R&B hip-hop albums chart. Campbell decided to sell a separate clean version in addition to the explicit version of the album, Move Something, in 1988. It's called As Clean as They Want to Be. producer by Mr. Mix and store clerk in Alexander City, Alabama, was cited for selling a copy to an undercover police officer in 1988. It was the first time in America and the United States that a record store owner was held liable for obscenity over music. The charges were dropped after the jury found the record store not guilty. It gets deeper. In 1989, the group released their third album, As Nasty as They Wanna Be, and they made an album called As Clean as They Wanna Be, which I'll get into that, which also became the group's most successful album. A large part of its success was due to the single,
Like a dog in heat, a freak without warning, not having appetite for love, cause me so horny.
which was popular located locally with heavily radio rotation for Miami's WPOW, Power 96 FM, the American Family Association did not think the presence of the parental advisory sticker was enough to adequately warn listeners of what was inside the case. Jack Thompson, a lawyer affiliated with the AFA, met with Florida Governor Bob Martinez. And we'll get into this in a second. It's really controversial now, everybody. And convinced him to look into the album to see if it met legal certifications of obscenity. In 1990, action was taken at the local level by Nick Navarro of Broadwin County Sheriff, received the ruling from the Circuit Court Judge Mel Grossman that probable cause for obscenity violations existed. In response, Luke Campbell maintained that people should focus on issues related to hunger, poverty, rather than lyrical content to their music. They should also go crack down drug dealers, and there was in Miami at the time, cocaine.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
So why are they going after him for making music? I don't know. Navarro warned the record store owners that selling the album might be prosecutable. Two Live Crew then filed for a suit against Navarro that June. The U.S. District Court Judge Joe Gonzalez ruled the album obscene and illegal to sell. Charles Freeman, a local retailer, was arrested 2 days later, after selling a copy to an undercover police officer. They got better things to do than mess with people with music. I don't understand what this whole deal was back here when we're supposed to be covered by the First Amendment, but doesn't include them. And you'll get what I'm saying in a minute. As nasty as they want to be, at Club Future in Hollywood, Florida, hosted by radio personality Tony the Tiger, Ira Wolf, from Power 96 FM, one of the few stations in the U.S. that continued airplay while the trial ensued. After international exposure, with support from the freedom of speech activists like Screw Magazine, Al Goldstein, who owned a house in Broadwin County, and many others, they were acquitted soon after, as Professor Henry Louis Gates Jr. testified at the trial in defense of the lyrics. Freeman's conviction was overturned on appeal as well. A lot of people had gotten the impression that I'm rude, sexual, diverted, or something Campbell told journalist Chuck Phillips. But contrary of what has been printed of me in the papers, I'm no immoral threat to anybody. I'm just a hard-working guy marketing a new product. In 1992, the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit overturned the obscenity, ruling Judge Gonzalez and the Supreme Court of the United States refused to hear Baldwin Court appeals. As in Freeman's case, Gates testified on behalf of Two Live Crew, arguing that the material that the county alleged was profane actually had important roots for African American vulgarity games and literally traditional and should be protected. As a result of controversy, sales of As Nasty as They Wanna Be remained brisk, selling over 2 million copies. It peaked at number 29 on the billboards in the top 200, and the number 3 on the top R&B Hot Albums chart. A few other retailers were later arrested for selling it as well, including Canadian Mark Emery, who was convicted in 1991 and would gain freedom as a marijuana activist. Later, hard rock band Van Halen sued over an unclear sample of their song Ain't Talking About Love. In the Two Live Crew song, The Fuck Shop, the publicity then continued when George Lucas, owner of the Star Wars universe, successfully sued Campbell for appropriating the name Skywalker. What about a mother sucker? For his record label, Luke Skywalker Records. Come on, man. Campbell changed the stage name to Luke and changed the record label's name to Luke Records. And the group released an extremely political follow-up album, banned in the USA, as you can see down here in the corner. Okay, so after obtaining permission to use the Interpoliticians of Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. So they had permission. But it gets deeper. Let's get into it. We'll get into this. I know we're 10 minutes in and 17 minutes in the recording, but this is very important to hip-hop. Banned in the U.S. is the group's 4th album. It was originally created by Luke's solo album. The certified gold album included the hits Do the Bark and the title track. It was also the first release to bear RIAA standard parental advisory warning sticker. The infamous title single is a reference to the decision in the court case. The album As Nasty as They Wanna Be was obsessive. The decision would later be overturned on appeal. Displeased over the decision of Florida Bob Martinez, and I love this one, this guy, on behalf asking to examine the album, decided it was obscene and recommended local law enforcement take action against it over the subsequent action of Broward County, Florida Sheriff Nick Navarro, who arrested local record store owners in obscenity charges for selling the group's album, and the subsequent arrest of members of the group on obscenity charges. The group included the song Buck Martinez.
This is something I shouldn't say, but I'm gonna say this shit in your motherfucking way. Fuck Martinez! Fuck!
Which also included multiple repetitions of the phrase Fuck Navarro. If you ever heard that song, it's really good. The group founded 2 other men, with the same names, and had them sign releases as though that this action was made impossible for Martinez and Navarro to sue them. It was pretty good. That's a pretty good way to go. Live in Concert is her 5th album. This was Two Live Crew's first and only live album, and was also the only Two Live Crews released under the subsidiary label of Luke Records, a move that deemed necessary for the company to be able to release additional Two Live Crew material outside the distribution deal with Atlantic Records, which was signed in 1990. The same year, released Banned in the USA. Sports Weekend as Nasty As I Wanna Be Part 2. In the 6th album, released in 1991. It was a sequel to As Nasty As I Wanna Be. A clear version was released later in the same title, Sports Weekend, As Clean As I Wanna Be Part 2. This would only be the last studio album by the original Two Live Crew. It contained a successful single, Popped That Pussy, or Pop That Coochie.
How hard, hard like a rock when you make that coochie pop. Pop that coochie.
Which is another version of the song. The album is certified gold. From that point, it released by Two Live Crew would always have having one or two members of the original lineup, missing the exception of Fresh Ice Kid Ice. In 1994, Back Your Ass Up for the 9 was released. This album, the group was billed as Two Live Crew, as Brother Marquise and Mr. Mix had left the group. The lineup for the album was Fresh Kid Ice, Luke, and a new member, Verb. It was the last album with the Two Live Crew band in the feature Luke. The album became a moderate hit, peaking 52 on Billboard's 200 and 9 on the hip-hop albums. 2 charting singles were provided Hell Yeah and You Go Girl, who were both made into music videos. In 1995, saw a reunion of Fresh Kid Ice, Brother Marquise, Mr. Mix, reformed again to record Hoochie Mama, the soundtrack from the movie Friday, a soundtrack released #1 in the Top 200, reached #1 on the Billboard 200. Now that's pretty cool. They come back and get #1 on the Billboard 200, where it held position for 2 weeks and charted for 6 weeks on the top 10 hip-hop album. That's pretty cool. That one song, man, that is so cool. This is why I like this group. Fresh Kid Ice, Mix, and Brother Marquise left Luke and Luke Records to go to Little Joe Records and release Shakin' a Little Something in 96 without Luke Campbell. Shake a Little Something is her 7th album. It was released in 96 by Little Joe Records and was produced by Mr. Mix. The album made it to 145 in the Billboard 200 and 33 in the top ever. With 2 singles, Shakin' Little Something was made #11 on the Hot Rap single chart, and Do the Damn Thing was made 24. It peaked #59 in the album chart. At the time, this album, Kid Fresh Ice had left Two Live Crew, which consisted of himself, of Luke, Verb, and Luke Records, to rejoin original member Mr. Mix, Brother Marquise. However, the reunion would be shortly lived, as Mr. Mix would leave the group after the album. The Real One was the 8th and last studio album released in 1998 for Little Joe, and absent of Mr. Mix, was produced by various producers and peaked 59. Shortly after the release of this album, Brother Marquis left as well. Hiatus and then reformation. In early 2000, Brother Marquis and Fresh Kid Ice would also pursue solo projects. In 2006-2007, Kid Fresh Ice and Brother Marquis discussed their differences and decided to relaunch Two Live Crew. They offered another past member to be involved, which were declined, both who started a tour of release singles. Afterward, Mr. Mix returned and Death of Fresh Kid Ice. In 2010, Brother Marquis and Fresh Kid Ice briefly reunited with Luke Campbell and Mr. Mix and were honors winners of the 2010 Hip Hop Honors of the Dirty South edition. Later that year, both men of them released singles I'm Too Live featuring Manny Fresh, Cougar, Boom, E40. They announced the release of Two Live Crew's album called Just Want to Be Heard, The Guest, too short, E40, and ICP, Insane Clown Posse. It was set to be released in 2010, but remains released to this day. In 2014, the Two Live Crew released a new single, Take It Off. The video clip featured cameos from Manny Fresh, Flavor Flav, Trina Flo Rida, Trick Daddy. The single is available on iTunes. Later the year, made cameo to Flo Rida music videos, the GDFR. Also in 2014, also related albums called Turn Me On and remains released today. By Thanksgiving, the Two Live Crew reunited with Luke Campbell and a series of shows in 2015. In 2016, Fresh Kid Ice left the group, relaunched Cinema Records. Shortly after Mr. Mix returned to Two Live Crew, the same year Two Live Crew's duo released two singles, How About Them Cowboys and Old Horsey Sleigh. In 2013, at the age of 53, Kid Ice died in a Miami hospital for cirrhosis of the liver. And we're going to stop right there, because there's a lot more to Two Live Crew. But I've taken 26 minutes of your time. Now listen, the reason why I wanted to bring this group up is because they paved the way for hip-hop. They made it possible for Cardi B. They made it possible for Migos. They made it possible for a lot of controversial music that's happening today that they didn't have to go and plunge into this. They were going against a lot in the 80s. And they stood strong. And they kept coming back. And they kept firing back. And they didn't give up. And musicians, we need to take note that this group formed something. They formed an alliance together, and they kept coming back and kept coming back, and they didn't give up. There's a lot of things going on about when they came out with the parental advisory. It wasn't just for this group. It was for rock and roll too. They actually now listen, rock and roll didn't have no cussing. Dee Snider, Twisted Sister, they had parental guidance suggested on their albums. And Dee Snider and it's not mentioned in there, but Dee Snider and Luke Campbell made a case against the parental advisory. They didn't get nowhere with it, but they tried. They used the First Amendment. The First Amendment is basically saying that you have a freedom of speech. The freedom of speech, sometimes a lot of people take it out of context. They don't understand. But I'm going to tell you something. For somebody to stand up against law enforcement or any other entity in the United States. It's a pretty good group, and I also want to put a note in there that if Two Live Crew wasn't around, a lot of music today would be doing the same thing as they did. And I'm pretty sure Cardi B would have been Cardi B and the crew, and oh my God, Sweetie would be in there with them. Young Jock would be in there with them. The twerk music, all twerk music would be involved in it. So it would be like twerk wouldn't be able to happen. Lizzo wouldn't have been able to get in her G-string. It's just, this is controversial stuff. But it took a group to stand up against it. Today, we don't have that controversy that they had in the 80s. The 80s was like a burst. It was like, like I'm saying, it was clean. And then groups like NWA came out, and controversial. Ice-T was controversial. All these groups were controversial. But they stood for something. They stood for artistry. And that's what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about the artistry of the music and in the music industry. Now, I know this video is long. And for those of you who stayed around to hear the end of this, I want you to give you props. And I want to say you that no matter what happens in the music industry, this is a must-see video. Because this right here paves the way for other groups and all kinds of musicians to continue to do their best and provide the First Amendment. So, this is First Amendment out. Anyway, this is talking about the First Amendment. I thought y'all new DJs would like to hear it, and old DJs would like to hear something about our music and where a lot of controversy came that a lot of people stood up for. And they stood for their music. They didn't back down. And that's what we need to do. We need to stand together as musicians. Stand together as musicians and remember, no matter what, we join no matter what club. Because I want to say this. They could have been going after cocaine dealers. They could have been going after a lot of smugglers back in Miami. They chose to go after a musician. They chose to go after musicians who were doing nothing but selling an album to make money. Legally make money. Do you understand what legal means? From my understanding, Atlantic Records, BMI, all these record companies do it every day. But somebody gets out there and says, pop that pussy, and you want to put handcuffs on her. Mind you, that's a derogatory word, or fuck Martinez and fuck Navarro. It's in that album. You gotta listen to it. And I take them for credit for doing that so they wouldn't be sued. That's smart. But anyway, let's go ahead and leave you with the final note. And I'm going to say this. Ooh, I like this one. This one fits the cake. It says, it's hard to beat a person who never gives up. Babe Ruth. They never gave up. And we not need to give up. So remember, when you're making something and somebody turns it down, don't worry about it. Somebody paved the way for you already. Peace.